Check out our new Facebook group, Big Bait Addicts, if you want extra discussions and information on how to make these baits. We also sell them on tvnation.net. Check them out. Swim baits are awesome. They catch big fish. They turn an average fisherman into a fantastic one if you put in the time and get the gear. But there's one trend that nobody ever talks about or touches on, but they're equally just as effective in the big bait market. We're going to show you those in comparison to these. Well, let's start out with crankdowns. Crankdown swim baits became a huge trend a few years ago, and it's pretty easy to understand why if you put in the work to fish them. But they are quite a bit of work to put together. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things that can go wrong. They are, in essence, much easier to make than a glide bait. Big glide baits and jointed swim baits draw fish from the deep up to the top for an ambush, but these go right down to the fish. So the bigger fish, who's not so amped to go chase down a meal, will just suck one of these up. The results are pretty shocking. The originators, the creators of this bait trend, made them to bounce off rocks and bottoms and kind of creep down below, and they are very effective that way, but I found that they are just as effective kind of slow rolling through the deep in a transition where schools of gizzard shad and other bait fish are. But you really start to see their true worth in the rough weather. You know, on this lake that I'm at, rough weather is what gets it done. They don't travel through the wind so well, they kind of helicopter like a normal glide bait does, but they do produce. They do very well once they hit the water and they crank down. They're able to get fairly good sizable fish. I think the biggest superpower that these baits have is the ability to actually take the attention off of fish on large schools of bait fish. Like gizzard shad, if you throw these lures down there and they have the right profile, you'll get hit like way more. Bigger fish versus throwing jigs, hair jigs, spoons, cranks, lipless jigging down there. You know, you throw everything else out there, you follow the trends, you follow what people say, everything, dragging worms, dragging jigs, throwing lures, throwing frogs, whatever you need to do. But I've never caught fish the way I have until I started throwing big baits like this, where I consider myself a pretty good fisherman, but not a great fisherman. But I was mentored by a few who really truly understood what it took to catch big fish on this lake. Pretty low-key people. And what they did is they dedicated themselves with the gear and the time to throw these big massive baits. No matter how heavy they are, no matter how much your arm hurts, you put in the work and you got results. And you also went out on the lake when everybody else is getting off. You put in the time to get them. But it didn't really end at largemouth. I started catching pretty big striper while only using this lure for about a trip and a half. Like striper that I've been trying to target for years and that I can only find in key spots that are pretty dangerous to go in. And now on the actual lake in the open water where they're pretty smart and pretty conditioned, I'm catching them. I mean, these are my lures, I'm casting them, I'm perfecting them. I perfected a gizzard profile just recently on this 11-inch bait, and it's really, really working well for multiple platforms. But there is one lure that maybe even beats this for a few reasons that nobody even thinks about, but I'm going to introduce to you today. I was gifted this lure from an old friend, and I tried it for a few times until I got it snagged in a tree, never to be seen again. And it was the most fantastic lure, and I wondered why nobody else made them or used them. I don't really get, factions of the big bait trend, but I'm just obsessed with lures that catch fish, and they catch big fish. As far as design to make them, it is much easier. It's one solid body, one piece, one mold, can be done in a one-piece mold, and it takes one weight, right at the head to make. That's it. The hardest thing is actually finding a profile that works and that catches fish, because I had made several profiles, they all swam the same way, did fairly the same thing, but there's only two that really actually killed it on the lake. It is about the profile, the way it looks like in the water, and the silhouette. So this one was the first major one that was extremely successful. It casts a mile, it sinks like a rock, it gets into areas and presents in areas and conditions that no other lure that I have ever made or that can even find in a tackle store does. I don't know why people don't do this, but this thing is immensely useful in so many ways that, I can't even really justify. And it's a perfect size, Goldilocks size. Big enough to entice the big fish, but not so big that it scares off all the other fish. So it really just catches a big wide gamut. Probably maybe the most successful lure that I've ever made is this small crank. And trust me, I went through quite a few different profiles to get it that way, but that was the best profile in terms of how it swam, to how it looked, to how it presents. and everything. Trolling, jigging, slow rolling, it does it all. This bait kind of saved my creative process because I had made several other baits that just didn't catch any fish or just swam like garbage, and I was about to give up, but then this one outproduced everything I've ever even had and outproduced anything I've ever even used from any other bait company. It was the one that kind of spurred big giant movements, putting in the work, testing it out, failing. But if you don't fail, it means you never even tried. So I tried several different profiles and species, and I finally found one version that worked truly phenomenal and caught fish, which I did into a version 2 and finally a version 3 where it's perfected and swims really good, and it just, the results are phenomenal in terms of the ease of use. It's substantially easier to make this and rig it, and it is just as, if not maybe more effective at times than a crankdown swim bait. And I would fish this one the same way. I would target large bait fish and I would roll it across them, and maybe even this one had an edge because with the crankdowns, that's a lot of moving parts, a lot of erratic movement. You can do things to make them have more subtle movement to where they're not swimming so aggressively. But this thing, when you truly slow roll it, there's no moving parts, no odd movements, and it really has a much different action to it when it's this big, that when you roll it slow, it looks fantastic. It's not like a standard lipless where you have to burn it for it to really look its best. When you super slow move it, it looks fantastic. But when you burn this, kind of speed it up at a larger profile, it does look fairly odd and unnatural, and it kind of goes all kinds of places. It does move a lot of water though, but it is best served at a slow troll or a slow roll. And you can also jig these, and I've used them to jig on Panoptics, and it does work. I have not caught a fish on the jig, but I have had a lot of interest, and fish that were just ignoring on the slow roll were going after it to jig. This one's made specifically so when you stops, it points down. And there was a few of them that was a problem because sometimes you'd have the bait kind of flail down and it would fall all kind of erratically and not do it right, and then the hooks would get caught in the line, and that kind of went away. Quite a bit of time was put into the lure. I know it's basic, but like any lure, you got to put the time in. We also only ran one hook, which made the lure extremely easy to grab and just pull the fish out of the water, and really we were only getting headshots, never on the back hook for this big of a crank. With a profile this big, we were not getting any back hooks. All the back hook was doing was tangling around the line and messing up your cast. Did I mention this thing casts like a mile, and it doesn't sink as fast as a small one, obviously, but it does sail through. It does cast well. There's less moving parts, way less to go wrong, much easier. The crankdown is a bit more erratic, and there's a lot more moving parts and a lot more to go wrong, a lot more things going to it. Maybe that's why the track striper are not shying from the erratic movement. They don't care. They'll go and blitz something. Super strong and powerful fish. So I don't think they really even mind. The striper really liked my 11-inch gizzard shad profile, but I'm wondering if it's more the profile than the fact that it was a crankdown, because I had other crankdowns and I never caught striper on them, only bass. So maybe that profile is superior, and I made that into 3 different versions, including a glide bait, crankdown, jointed, etc. I like big striper, so that's reason enough for me to go through the hassle of making these. But if you really like largemouth bass, big ones that will eat a lure this big, I'm telling you, this one is it. But don't take my word for it. Here we're going to give you some live demo of water, 46 degrees, pre-spawn, and here's how we got them.
Oh, it's right there. It's right there. Oh, no? That. No quality. Nice one.
Look at that sucker. On the new one. Nice. I think sub 4 pounds. Right at 4 or just under. A very fat 3. Nice stomach. Going into pre-spawn. Got him on the mag. Just f***ing around out here in the channel because we're getting blanked. You know, like I could tell he was there. Right on, good work. These have been outproducing everything. It's January, it's 46 degree water. Nothing wants to bite. The fish are hard as heck to find. We're just out here doing it.
Yeah, with no electronics.
With no electronics, because we forgot to charge the electronic battery. We're just out here pulling around hard.
Got him? Got him? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Anchor. Dude. Nice fish! Dude! That's like a wall hang in Utah.
This is
Yeah.
my everyday life right here, man. Release this friggin'. I wonder how much it weighs. That's about
5?
That's definitely 5, huh?
Yeah, definitely 5.
It's a solid 5.
Solid 5 all day, I guarantee.
Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Its head is very big. It's almost got a 6-pound head. It's almost a 6. It's definitely 5.
Yeah.
A healthy 5, not.
Yeah, 5.5, 5 for sure.
You ready to go, Fishy? You ready to go?
That was awesome.
There we go. You got it. Got him. That's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Don't burn it like you did. Like you burnt.
Ooh, that's a nice one. Ooh, that's
Oh my
freaking
God.
toad.
Oh my God, dude. That is huge.
Look at that.
Oh my God!
Oh, shit.
That is the biggest bass I've ever caught, dude. No doubt.
Show me. Pull it up. Oh my God. That is a big fish.
Oh my God.
Let it down. Look at his stomach, dude. That thing is a football. That is a foot. Jeez, look at the stomach.
Dude.
Oh yeah, dude, it's 5'6", 5'8",
5'6".
5.5 pounds. Yeah, that's a big fish.
What a toad.
Jeez. That's a freaking.
Dude, that's my personal best, and
That's freaking sweet. All right, let's get him in the water, dude.